I'm Frank Morrison. I'm 58 years old, and 3 months ago, at what I thought was just another family dinner, my son looked me dead in the eye and shouted, "Give up the room or move out." Just like that. No warning. No discussion. The words cut deeper than I expected, deeper than anything had cut me since Sarah died 5 years ago. He said the room, my room, the room I'd been living in for 2 goddamn years, should go to my daughter-in-law for her creative workspace, or I should pack my things, like I was some deadbeat relative who'd overstayed his welcome, like I hadn't sacrificed everything to help them get on their feet. You want to know what humiliation feels like? It's sitting at a dinner table you helped pay for, in a house you helped them buy, listening to your own child dismiss you like you're nothing, like you're disposable, like you're just taking up space in a life you helped build, like subscribe and comment where you're watching from, because that night I chose self-respect over being treated like a guest in my own family's story. But let me back up. Let me tell you how I got to that moment, because it didn't happen overnight. This is a story about what happens when kindness gets mistaken for weakness, when sacrifice gets forgotten, and when a man finally decides he's had enough. 2 years ago, when Marcus, that's my son, when Marcus and his wife Jessica were drowning in debt, guess who they called? Not his mother. She'd been gone for 3 years by then, cancer taking her piece by piece while I watched helplessly. No, they called me. "Dad, we're in trouble, real trouble. The house payment, Jessica's student loans, the credit cards. We can't make it work." So what did I do? What any father would do. I sold my condo, liquidated my retirement CD, the one Sarah and I had been building for 20 years, took a $40,000 hit in early withdrawal penalties, handed over $180,000 for their down payment without blinking. "We've got you forever, Dad," Marcus said, tears in his eyes as he hugged me. "This is your home now. We're family. Forever. Remember that word, because I sure as hell do." I moved into their spare bedroom, the one next to the baby's nursery they were planning. I didn't mind. Hell, I was grateful to be useful again. After Sarah died, the silence in my condo was killing me slowly. At least here, there was life, noise, purpose, and I threw myself into that purpose like a drowning man grabs a life preserver. School runs for little Emma, Marcus's daughter from his first marriage. Every morning at 7:30, rain or shine. When their water heater died in January, who do you think crawled under the house in freezing mud to install the new one? When Jessica's car needed a transmission and they couldn't afford the repair, who co-signed the loan? I paid utilities, groceries. I fixed their fence when the storm knocked it down, painted their kitchen when Jessica decided the beige was too depressing, watched Emma every weekend when they wanted date nights. But here's the thing that started eating at me. Slowly at first, then faster. The way they talked about me changed depending on who was listening. In private, it was all gratitude. "Dad, you're amazing. We couldn't do this without you. You're the best grandfather Emma could ask for." But when friends came over, when Jessica's family visited, suddenly I was supposed to keep my things out of the way. My coffee mug disappeared from the counter. My newspaper got moved from the kitchen table to some corner. "Dad, can you maybe eat in your room tonight? Jessica's book club is coming over and we need the space." "Dad, we're having people over for the game. Could you maybe go out for a few hours?" I started feeling like a ghost in my own family's life, present when they needed something fixed or someone to watch Emma, invisible when they wanted to look like a successful young couple who had their shit together. The breaking point came 6 months ago, though I didn't recognize it then. Jessica announced she was pregnant. Don't get me wrong, I was thrilled. Another grandchild. Beautiful. But within a week, the hints started. "Frank, we're going to need to reconfigure some spaces. The baby will need the nursery, obviously, and Emma's getting older. She needs more room. It would be so nice if I had somewhere to work on my blog. You know, my influencer stuff." Her influencer stuff. Christ. Jessica had 847 followers on Instagram and made maybe $50 a month selling some kind of essential oil pyramid scheme. But suddenly, she was a content creator who needed a studio space. And where do you think that studio space was going to come from? 3 months ago, I was doing what I always did, staying up late, paying bills online, managing my small consulting business. See, Marcus and Jessica never bothered to ask what I actually did for work. They assumed I was just some retiree living off Social Security and whatever scraps Sarah had left me. They had no idea I'd been building a successful consulting practice, helping small manufacturers streamline their operations. They didn't know about my pension from 30 years at Boeing. They never asked about my investment portfolio, the one I'd been quietly building back up since Sarah's death. Why? Because they never asked. They just assumed. Assumed I was dependent on them. Assumed I had nowhere else to go. Assumed I was grateful for the privilege of being tolerated in their lives. That night, 3 months ago, I was on my laptop paying my quarterly business taxes, 6 figures by the way, when I heard Jessica and Marcus talking in the kitchen. The baby monitor was on, and sound carries in these new houses. "I need that room, Marcus. The baby's coming in 4 months, my following is finally growing, and I can't keep trying to film content in the corner of our bedroom." "I know, but Dad..." "Your dad will understand. He loves us. He wants what's best for the family." "But where would he go?" "There are lots of nice senior communities, places where he'd have people his own age, activities. He might actually be happier." Senior communities, like I was some doddering old fool who needed activities and bingo nights. "Jessica, he helped us buy this house. And we're grateful. But Marcus, that was his choice. We didn't ask him to sell his place. We didn't ask him to move in. He wanted to help, and that was sweet. But we can't be responsible for his housing for the rest of his life." Responsible for my housing, like I was some charity case they'd taken in out of the goodness of their hearts. That's when I started planning. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my laptop and started doing research. Real estate, mortgage rates, inventory in the neighborhood. And I found something beautiful. Something perfect. The house directly across the street. 1247 Maple Grove Drive. The Hendersons' place. They'd been trying to sell for 8 months ever since Tom retired and they moved to Florida. Beautiful Tudor-style home, 3 bedrooms, 2-car garage, and a front office with huge windows that looked straight across at Marcus and Jessica's house. The asking price had dropped twice, started at $1.4 million down to $1.2 million. Still expensive, but the bones were solid, the neighborhood was appreciating, and the symbolism was perfect. I called the listing agent the next morning. Sarah Chen, sharp as a tack, no nonsense. We met that afternoon. "Mr. Morrison, I have to ask, this is quite a jump from renting a room to buying a house this size. Are you sure about the financing?" I handed her my bank statements, tax returns, and business financials. Watched her eyebrows go up as she scanned the numbers. "I see. Well, I think we can make this work very quickly if you're serious." "I'm serious, and I want to close as fast as possible." "How fast?" "They're having contractors install Jessica's studio equipment next Friday. I want to be in that house by Thursday night." Sarah smiled, the kind of smile that said she understood this wasn't just about real estate. "Let me make some calls." The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in controlled fury. During the day, I played the part. Helpful Frank. Invisible Frank. I watched Emma, fixed a loose cabinet door, listened to Jessica complain about morning sickness while she planned her content calendar. But at night? At night, I was a man with a mission. Bank meetings, home inspection, insurance. I moved money, signed papers, coordinated contractors. All while they thought I was just puttering around online, probably looking at Facebook or playing solitaire. The beautiful part was watching them plan my eviction without actually talking to me about it. Jessica ordered ring lights and a backdrop. Marcus measured the room, my room, for her editing desk. They talked about paint colors and where to put the camera equipment. All of it happening around me, like I was furniture they were planning to donate to Goodwill. The hardest part was keeping my mouth shut when they'd drop their little hints. "Frank, have you given any thought to what you might want to do, for the future?" "Dad, we've been thinking, maybe it's time you started looking at your options." Options, like I was some problem they needed to solve. 2 days before their studio installation, I had my final bank meeting. Mortgage approved. 60% down, 2.3% interest rate, monthly payments that were less than what I'd been spending on their utilities. "Mr. Morrison," my loan officer said, "I have to say, in 30 years of banking, I've rarely seen someone your age with credit this clean and income this stable. You could have bought this house without breaking a sweat 5 years ago." "Yeah, I could have. But 5 years ago, I thought family meant something different." That night, after Marcus and Jessica went to bed, I started packing. Quietly, carefully. I left decoys, some clothes in the closet, toiletries in the bathroom, my coffee mug in the kitchen sink. But everything that mattered, everything that was actually mine, into boxes, into my truck, into storage, 3 trips. That's all it took to move a lifetime of belongings out of a room where I'd never really belonged. Thursday morning, moving day, I woke up at 5 a.m. Marcus and Jessica were still sleeping when I left for my morning walk. By 7 a.m., the moving truck was pulling up to 1247 Maple Grove Drive. You want to know what power feels like? Power feels like standing in your own front office, watching movers carry your furniture into your house, while across the street, your son and daughter-in-law wake up completely unaware that the world just shifted. I set up my desk first, right in front of the big window. Positioned it so when I sat down, Marcus and Jessica's house filled the frame perfectly. Then I hung my certificates, business license, Boeing retirement plaque, my consulting awards, the deed to the house, fresh from the closing, in a beautiful frame right in the center. By noon, the truck was empty, and I was officially a homeowner again. Independent, invisible no more. I watched from my window as the studio contractors arrived at Marcus's place right on schedule. Ring lights, cameras, sound equipment. Jessica directing traffic in yoga pants and a tank top, glowing with excitement about her new creative space. My old room, the room I'd paid utilities for, slept in, lived in, existed in while they planned my removal. At 6 p.m. my phone rang. Marcus. "Hey Dad, where are you? Dinner's ready and Jessica's excited to show you the studio setup." "I'm looking at it right now," I said. "What do you mean?" "Look out your front window, son." I watched him walk to the window, watched him spot me in my office across the street, watched his face change as he realized what he was seeing. "Dad? What? Where are you?" "I'm home." "I don't understand." "I'm in my house. 1247 Maple Grove Drive. I bought it. Closed today. You said give up the room or move out. So I moved out." The silence on the phone was beautiful. Absolute. Complete. "Dad, this isn't... You can't just... Come over for dinner Sunday," I said. 6 o'clock. I'll cook. And Marcus? Knock first. This is my house." I hung up and watched him stand at his window, staring across the street at me. Jessica appeared beside him, and I could see her mouth moving rapidly, probably asking questions he couldn't answer. I waved. "Sunday dinner, 6 o'clock. They knocked. I opened the door, calm as still water. "Come in." Marcus and Jessica stood in my entryway like tourists in a foreign country, looking around at my furniture, in my space. The furniture that had been crowded into that bedroom for 2 years, now spread out properly in a living room that actually fit it. "Dad," Marcus started, "we need to talk about this." "We're talking. Have a seat." I'd cooked pot roast, Sarah's recipe. The smell filled the house, and I could see it hitting Marcus like a memory. Sunday dinners when he was young, when we were a family, when he was my little boy instead of a man who thought he could dispose of his father like an inconvenience. "You bought this house," Jessica said. It wasn't a question. I did. With what money? And there it was. The assumption that had been driving everything. Poor old Frank, living off scraps, dependent on their charity. I handed her a folder, bank statements, tax returns, business income reports, the closing documents. 60% down, I said. Cash, 2.3% interest rate. The bank was impressed with my credit score and income stability. Jessica flipped through the papers, her face getting paler with each page. You've been making this much money, this whole time. This whole time. But you never said, you never asked. Marcus was staring at the deed framed on my mantel. Dad, I don't understand. If you could afford this, why did I live in your spare bedroom? Pay your utilities? Watch Emma? Fix your fence and your water heater and co-sign your car loan? He nodded. Because you're my son. Because I thought that's what family did for each other. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Dad, Jessica said, and her voice had changed. Smaller now, uncertain. We didn't know you had options. Options. I tasted the word. That's what you called me last week. An option you needed to exercise. We didn't mean it like that. How did you mean it? More silence. You want to know what hurts? I said, and for the first time since this started, I let some of the anger show. It's not that you needed the room. It's not even that you wanted me to leave. It's that you never once asked what I wanted. Never asked what I could afford. Never asked if I had somewhere to go. You just assumed I was some burden you'd inherited when your mother died. Some obligation you needed to manage. Marcus's eyes were wet. Dad, that's not... You promised me forever, Marcus. You remember that? When I handed you that check for $180,000, you promised me forever. This is still forever. Just because you moved across the street doesn't mean... It means everything changed. Because I'm not your dependent anymore. I'm not your grateful old father living in your spare room. I'm your neighbor, and neighbors have boundaries. I stood up and walked to the window, looking across at their house. The studio lights were on in my old room. Jessica's ring light casting everything in artificial brightness. Your studio looks nice, I said. Very professional. Frank, Jessica said, and I heard something I'd never heard from her before. Respect? Fear? We made a mistake. Yes, you did. How do we fix this? I turned back to them. You don't. This is fixed. I'm not fixing this for you. But we're family, Marcus said. Are we? Because family doesn't get evicted. Family doesn't get managed like a problem to be solved. Family gets asked, not told. I served dinner. We ate in strained silence, the weight of 2 years' worth of unspoken resentment filling the room like smoke. Finally, Jessica spoke. The neighbors are asking questions. About why you moved out. About why you bought a house across the street. They think we threw you out. Didn't you? Not like that. Not like everyone thinks. How does everyone think? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Like we're ungrateful. Like we used you and then tossed you aside when we didn't need you anymore. And that's not what happened? Dad, come on. You know that's not... Do I? Because from where I was sitting, that's exactly what happened. I pulled out another folder. This one hurt to compile, but I'd done it anyway. Printouts of bank transfers, receipts for groceries, utilities, repairs, photos of me watching Emma, fixing their fence, painting their kitchen. A itemized list of every dollar spent, every hour donated, every piece of myself I'd given them over 2 years. $47,000 in direct financial support, I said, not counting the down payment. 430 hours of child care. 16 major home repairs, grocery bills, utility bills, car repair cosigns. They stared at the papers like I was presenting evidence in court, which, in a way, I was. I wasn't your guest, I said. I was your partner, your unpaid partner in making your life work, and the minute you didn't need me anymore, you wanted me gone. That's not fair, Jessica said, but her voice was small. Isn't it? When's the last time you asked how my business was going? When's the last time you asked about my health, my plans, my feelings about anything that wasn't directly related to what I could do for you? The questions hung in the air unanswered, because we all knew the answers. None. Never. Not once. 3 months have passed since that dinner. 3 months of living in my own space, on my own terms, with my own boundaries firmly in place. The fallout was immediate and predictable. Jessica's family was horrified when they found out what had happened. Marcus's friends started treating him differently. The neighbors had opinions. How could you let your father move out like that? Frank Morrison is the nicest man on the street. What did you do to him? Your poor father, having to buy his own house because his son threw him out. Marcus tried to control the narrative, but the truth has a way of surfacing. People aren't stupid. They'd seen me helping them for 2 years. They'd seen me watching Emma, fixing things, being present. And then suddenly, I'm gone and living across the street? The math wasn't hard. Jessica's influencer career stalled. Turns out having your followers think you're the kind of person who throws out your father-in-law isn't great for engagement. The comments on her posts turned ugly. What happened to Frank? Where's Emma's grandfather? You seem ungrateful. She deleted the posts about the studio, changed her content strategy, started posting about family values and gratitude, but the damage was done. When you build a brand on being aspirational and relatable, being seen as entitled and ungrateful is poison. Marcus's construction business took a hit too. Word gets around in a small community. 3 clients canceled projects. We'll find someone else, they said. Someone who treats family right. The studio equipment they'd bought? Half of it's still in boxes. Turns out Jessica's content wasn't the problem. It was her attitude. And that's harder to fix with ring lights and camera upgrades. But here's what really got to them. They realized how much they'd been depending on me. Emma's school pickup? They had to rearrange work schedules. Broken garbage disposal? $200 service call? Date nights? Babysitter costs? Grocery runs when Jessica was too tired? Delivery fees and tips? All the little things I'd been handling quietly, invisibly, adding up to thousands of dollars and dozens of hours every month. Marcus called me in January. Dad, we're struggling. I'm sorry to hear that. The credit cards are maxed out. Jessica's pregnancy is high risk. She can't work as much. Emma needs new school clothes, and we're behind on her extracurriculars. That sounds difficult. Would you consider helping us out? Just until we get back on our feet. I looked out my office window at their house, at the room that used to be mine, now filled with unused equipment and broken dreams. No, I said. Dad, please. We know we screwed up, but we're family. You're Emma's grandfather. You wouldn't let her suffer because you're mad at us. I'm not mad, Marcus. Mad is temporary. This is permanent change. What do you mean? I mean the bank of Frank is closed. The Frank handyman service is unavailable. The Frank babysitting cooperative has been dissolved. You're punishing us. I'm protecting myself. From what? From being used again. The silence on the phone was long and heavy. So that's it? We're on our own? You've been telling me I was on my own for months. Turnabout is fair play. Dad, we never said. You never had to say it. You showed me. I hung up and went back to my work. Real work. Paying work. Work that valued my expertise instead of taking it for granted. My business has exploded since I moved out. Turns out having a proper office, proper space, and proper boundaries makes you more professional, not less. Clients respect me more when they come to my house for meetings instead of meeting me in a spare bedroom at my son's place. I landed 3 major contracts in the last 2 months. Boeing wants me back as a consultant on a new project. The city hired me to streamline their permitting process. My calendar is booked solid through the summer. The money is good, better than good, but that's not why I do it. I do it because it reminds me who I am outside of being Marcus's father and Emma's grandfather. I'm Frank Morrison, industrial efficiency expert. Frank Morrison, problem solver. Frank Morrison, the guy companies call when they need shit figured out and fixed. Not Frank Morrison, the burden. Not Frank Morrison, the obligation. Not Frank Morrison, the guest. I bought a dining room table, a big one, solid oak, seats 8. I host Sunday dinners now, but not for Marcus and Jessica. For my friends, for my neighbors, for people who enjoy my company instead of tolerating my presence. Last week, Tom Henderson called from Florida, the guy who sold me this house. "Frank, how's the house treating you?" "Like it's mine," I said. He laughed. "Best answer I could ask for. Listen, I heard through the grapevine what happened with your son. I wanted you to know, that kid doesn't know what he lost." "No," I said, looking across the street at their house, where I could see Marcus mowing the lawn he used to pay me to mow. "But he's learning. The hardest part isn't Marcus and Jessica. The hardest part is Emma. She's 7 now, smart as a whip, and she doesn't understand why Grandpa Frank lives across the street instead of in the room next to hers." She waves at me from her bedroom window, and I wave back from my office. But it's not the same as bedtime stories and Saturday morning pancakes. Marcus brings her over sometimes. Scheduled visits, like I'm a divorced parent instead of a grandfather. It's awkward and forced and breaks my heart a little every time. "Why can't you live with us anymore, Grandpa Frank?" she asked last time. "Because sometimes grown-ups need their own space," I said. "But you had your own space. You had your room, out of the mouths of babes." "That wasn't really my space, sweetheart. It was your parents' space that they let me use." "What's the difference? How do you explain property rights and dignity and respect to a 7-year-old? The difference is that this house is mine. Nobody can tell me to leave or give up my room because it belongs to me." She thought about that for a long time. "Are you mad at Daddy?" "No, sweetheart. I'm not mad, but I'm not going to let people treat me badly just because we're family." "Even if they're sorry?" "Even then." Because here's the thing about sorry. It doesn't undo the damage. It doesn't erase the moment when your own child looks you in the eye and tells you to get out. It doesn't take back months of being treated like an inconvenience. Sorry is just a word. Changed behavior is what matters. And the behavior hasn't changed. Not really. Marcus apologized. A big, dramatic apology full of tears and regret and promises to do better. But within a week, he was asking for favors again. Could I watch Emma while they went to a doctor's appointment? Could I look at their leaky faucet? Could I co-sign a small loan to cover some unexpected expenses? The apology was just another attempt to manage me, to get me back to being useful Frank, available Frank, grateful Frank. I said no to all of it. Jessica's tried a different approach. Guilt. "Frank, I'm having complications with the pregnancy. I'm on bed rest. We really need help with Emma. Have you considered hiring a babysitter? We can't afford. That's not my problem." "How can you say that? She's your granddaughter." "And you're not my daughter. You made it very clear that I'm not family in the way that involves obligation and responsibility. I'm just the guy who lives across the street." "That's not what we meant." "It's what you said. We were stressed. We didn't think it through. You had months to think it through, months to plan my eviction, months to shop for studio equipment and measure my room and discuss where I should go. That wasn't a moment of stress. That was a deliberate plan. And that's the truth they can't face. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a heat-of-the-moment argument. This was a calculated decision to remove me from their lives when I became inconvenient. The fact that they didn't think I had options doesn't make it better. It makes it worse. It means they were willing to make me homeless rather than have an honest conversation about space and needs and boundaries. I've become something of a folk hero in the neighborhood. The story spread, got embellished, turned into local legend. The man who bought the house across the street from his son. The father who chose dignity over dependence. Other men my age seek me out. Widowers, divorcees, guys whose kids think they're burdens instead of blessings. They want to know how I did it, how I built financial independence, how I found the strength to set boundaries. I've started an informal support group. We meet at my house every other Saturday, coffee and conversation about money, respect, and late-life reinvention. Some of these guys are in situations that make my story look like a fairy tale. There's Bill, whose daughter moved him into a nursing home so she could sell his house and keep the money. There's Mike, whose son's wife convinced the family that Mike needed supervised care so they could take over his finances. There's Dave, who's been sleeping on his daughter's couch for 3 years while she promises to figure something out. These men thought they were alone, thought they were the only ones whose kindness had been mistaken for weakness, whose generosity had been repaid with ingratitude. They're not alone. This shit is epidemic. And you know what the common thread is? We all assumed our children would treat us the way we treated our parents, with respect, with gratitude, with the understanding that family means something more than convenience and utility. We were wrong, but we're learning. We're building new lives, new boundaries, new definitions of what family means when you're not willing to be anyone's doormat. The baby was born last month, a boy. They named him Michael, after Jessica's father. Marcus called to tell me. I could hear the exhaustion in his voice, the stress of new parenthood compounded by financial pressure and the loss of all the support I used to provide. He's beautiful, Dad. He looks like you. Congratulations. Would you like to meet him? Eventually. What does that mean? It means when you're ready to treat me like a grandfather instead of like hired help, I'll be happy to meet my grandson. Dad, that's not fair. He's an innocent baby. And I'm an innocent grandfather who got evicted from his grandchild's life. Fair seems to be in short supply around here. We made a mistake. You made a choice. Own it. I didn't go to the hospital. I didn't send gifts. I didn't drop everything to help with meals and diaper changes and middle-of-the-night emergencies. I sent a card with a savings bond. A $1,000 bond that won't mature for 18 years. Investment in his future, not support for their present. The message was clear. I'm still his grandfather, but I'm not their resource. From my office window, I can see into their house sometimes. Jessica moving around with the baby, looking overwhelmed and exhausted. Marcus trying to juggle work and child care and household management. Emma playing by herself more often than she used to. It would be easy to walk across the street and help. To fall back into the old patterns of being useful, needed, appreciated. But I won't, because that's not respect. That's rescue. And rescue isn't sustainable when it's one-sided. Real respect means acknowledging that I have value beyond my utility. It means recognizing that my time, my energy, my expertise have worth. It means understanding that relationships require reciprocity, not just need on one side and giving on the other. They haven't learned that yet. Maybe they never will. But I've learned something more important. I don't need their respect to have self-respect. I don't need their gratitude to know my worth. I don't need their invitation to live my life. Spring is coming. I can see it from my office window, where I spend most of my days now. The trees are budding, the grass is greening, and life is returning to the neighborhood. Marcus is outside, struggling to start the lawnmower. It's the same mower I used to maintain for him, changing the oil and cleaning the air filter and keeping it running smoothly. He's pulled the cord a dozen times, and I can see his frustration building. He looks across the street at my house, at my office window where I'm sitting, watching him struggle with equipment I know like the back of my hand. He raises his hand, a tentative wave, a question. I wave back. Nothing more. No offer to help. No movement toward the door. He looks at the mower, then back at me, then at the mower again. Then he walks inside, probably to call a repair service that will charge him $80 to do what I could have done in 5 minutes. But that's not my problem anymore. My problem is the consulting proposal I'm writing for a manufacturing company in Portland. My problem is the home inspection I'm having done on the rental property I'm buying downtown. My problem is deciding whether to accept the dinner invitation from Carol, the widow who lives 3 streets over and makes the best apple pie I've had since Sarah died. Good problems, my problems. The phone rings. Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. People ask me if I'm bitter, if I'm angry, if I regret buying this house, making this statement, choosing this path. The answer is no. I'm not bitter. Bitter is what you become when... I'm not bitter. Bitter is what you become when you let other people's behavior poison your future. I chose a different path. I'm not angry anymore. Anger was fuel for change, and the change is complete. Anger served its purpose, and I don't regret any of it. Not the house purchase, not the boundaries, not the difficult conversations, not the lonely holidays. Because here's what I've learned. Dignity is not negotiable. Self-respect is not optional. And family that requires you to diminish yourself is not family worth having. They told me to give up my room or move out. I gave up the room. I moved out. I built a life with a view, and from this window, from this desk, from this house that belongs to me and no one else, I can see everything clearly. I can see their struggles, their consequences, their learning. I can see Emma growing up and asking questions they don't want to answer. I can see their friends and neighbors treating them differently. I can see them beginning to understand what they lost when they decided I was disposable. But I can also see my own life, my work thriving, my bank account growing, my calendar full of people who value my company, not just my services, my house becoming a home, my future stretching ahead, full of possibilities that don't depend on anyone else's approval or gratitude. At 58 years old, I started over. I rebuilt my life from scratch, one boundary at a time. And you know what? It's a good life, a life worth living, a life worth protecting. They thought they were giving me an ultimatum, the room or the door. They had no idea they were giving me a gift, the chance to choose myself. If you're watching this because someone in your family has tried to shrink your space, minimize your worth, or treat your love like a resource to be managed, I want you to know something. You have options. More options than they think you have. More options than you think you have. You have value beyond your utility. You have worth beyond your willingness to sacrifice. You have dignity that no one can take from you unless you let them. Family is supposed to be a source of love and support, not a hierarchy of obligation and guilt. If your family can't see your worth, it doesn't mean you don't have worth. It means they need glasses. Set boundaries. Protect your peace. Choose your dignity. And if they don't like it, well, that's not your problem anymore. Like this video if you've ever had to choose between being used and being respected. Subscribe if you want to hear more stories about men who refused to disappear just because it was convenient for everyone else. And comment where you're watching from, because I want to know I'm not the only one who decided that self-respect was more important than keeping the peace. My name is Frank Morrison. I'm 58 years old. I live at 1247 Maple Grove Drive, in a house I bought with my own money, furnished with my own things, filled with my own peace. And every morning I wake up in my own bed, in my own room, in my own house, and remember that the best revenge is living well. From my office window I can see the future, and it's beautiful. What would you have done at that dinner? Because I'll tell you what I did. I chose myself, and I'd do it again tomorrow.